Hi, everyone. This is Aziz Yusuf from the Screw the Stock Market podcast show, the show where we talk about alternative investments outside of the stock market. We discuss how to build wealth and gain financial freedom so that you can live your best life. And in today's episode, we're meeting with Kim Meredith Hampton. She is someone I would classify as a serial entrepreneur who has her finger in many pies, all extending out of the real estate sector. Kim is a broker. She has a brokerage. She has a property management business. She's an investor. She does long-term rental. She does short-term rental. She does it all. And now she's also getting into some commercial real estate and kind of workspaces that she owns and she manages. So she's a very interesting guest and somebody who actually we've been very interested to speak to, and especially in regards to the short-term rental space. That's an area that we haven't had too many guests to come and speak about in recent times, and we really kind of wanted to dig in and dive in. So this is a very good one in that regards. And being both a investor as well as a property manager, she kind of gives a great perspective because she also gives you tips not only on how to find, how to market, and how to build up a short-term rental business, but also how to find great property managers to help you through that process, help run your business and kind of maintain your properties. So she gives you the perspective from both sides of the angle of since she's got over 30 years of experience in the game. So without further ado, here's Kim, and this should be a good one.
Hey there, thank you so much for tuning into the show. You know, it means so much to me and Aziz that you are actually listening, that there's people really listening to the show. We're having fun with it, and we hope that you're getting a lot of value too. Education is just one of the first steps that anyone should take when they're on a journey towards financial freedom or personal development. And so it's great, you're doing the right things. I want to suggest a second step that you might want to consider if a lot of the things that we're talking about on the show are resonating with you. Consider visiting our website, legatoinvest.com/invest. And there's a button where you can click to gain access to our opportunities. And what will happen is you'll schedule a call with us. We'll talk, we'll get on a Zoom, and we'll get to know your investment experience. We'll get to know you. We'll learn about your objectives. And then if it's a good fit, we'll actually start to present you with real investment opportunities from time to time. And you'll be in the driver's seat where you can say, no, I don't like that one. And yes, I do like that one. And those real decisions, that means that you're actually in the game towards your financial freedom. So consider visiting legatoinvest.com/invest. Again, that's LEGADO invest.com/invest.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Screw the Stock Market, the podcast where we talk about building wealth and investing in private equity and trying to find our way to freedom. Today we have our special guest, Kim Meredith Hampton. She's what I like to call a serial entrepreneur. She's an expert in short-term rentals, long-term rentals, brokerage. She's got a now working space also that she's renting out as well. She does everything and anything in the real estate market you can think of. So we're very, very excited to have her on the show today.
Welcome, Kim.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Kim, give us a little bit about yourself. Tell us a little bit about your background and how you got started. And also mention what your business is right now, your main one.
Sure. We actually have, 3 businesses and a fourth that we're just starting this next week. We have Hampton and Hampton Management and Leasing. My husband and I own. We have about 3,000 doors across Central Florida, from Orlando all the way over to St. Pete, Tampa. And just to drive us crazy, as I told Aziz earlier, that's why I have some gray hairs now. We also
At least you have hairs.
Yeah. We have the Florida Nest, which is our newer Hampton brand, and that is primarily your short and midterm flex leasing. Then we also have Hampton Real Estate Advisors, which is kind of coincides with both of those brands because we sell only to investors, and that could be anywhere from a single family, a multifamily, and then also a short term could use for vacation or short term leasing. And I started in this business 30 years ago, and I started as a leasing agent. in a multifamily property. In my previous life, I was a school teacher, did not make enough money. And so I thought, you know what, I'm just going to throw it all out there and let's do something different. I walked in at the right time and the district manager was there and they hired me on the spot. And I did it was a 2-day cruise to nowhere. It was a move in, ship out kind of thing. It was our special. And so we did that and I loved it. And within a couple months, I got promoted and they sent me to the worst hellhole. That's all I could say in Tampa. And it was unbelievable. And I thought, God, I don't think these people like me very much. They've sent me to this horrible place. But she was training me and then went on to a 800 unit, did a lease up on that. Then I got sent over to do a 300 unit $1 million rehab. She just kept grooming me for better and better. And I really appreciated her. She's passed now, but she was a phenomenal woman and mentor. Then eventually I got my real estate license, met my husband and at a company, and they decided that they wanted to, they brought in consultants and they were going to change us all to employees. And we thought, no, we don't want to be employees. So we went out and started our own thing from ground zero. And here we are today with 3,000 units plus our other 2 brands. And it's kind of it in a nutshell. Just my crazy story.
It's a big nutshell.
Yeah, it is. Yes.
And I had to laugh a little bit when you were talking about your start in education. Alex, for those of you that don't know, at one point in his life was an educator himself. I don't think he's the most mellow human being I've ever met in my entire life. I've known him for over 20 years. And that is the only time I've ever seen him angry.
Yeah, it was a real... First of all, I'll say my family, everyone in my family is in education, bunch of teachers. I admire and respect it as a career and as a calling and as it's just a huge value to society. But I couldn't do it. And I did it. I tried it twice, actually. I really am drawn to education and being an educator. I see something in it that I want to do. But just in the classroom, in that format, on that platform, the babysitting and kind of the discipline. I'm not a disciplinarian. I don't know. I just couldn't do it. And
also the
fear
kids
got under my skin. Oh my goodness.
There was also the fear factor. Remember, like all of those middle school girls constantly trying to hit on you. At one point, this is before Alex got married, he had to bring a picture of his sister and put it on his desk and pretend that was his wife. So they would just kind of keep their distance.
Oh, too funny.
Yeah, middle school is definitely a hormone-filled time. But
it's interesting because I always find that I end up teaching. It's usually real estate or property management. And I'm like, how did I get back here? But it kind of comes in. It's just like your podcast. You are educating people. And so it's very interesting how it comes full circle.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly been my conclusion. Is like, I am an educator after all. After all these, ups and downs and loops and winds, we end up and we're still educators. But the good thing about this is that we're only educating people who want to be here, right? Like,
yes.
And that makes it a lot easier. And so it's awesome. It's great.
Yeah. And
so go ahead.
No, I was just going to do a shameless plug also. In terms of our education credentials, we're also developing a lot of learning material as well as a result of this podcast. We've got a webinar coming up. We've got like some ebooks and then also actual trainings that we're developing. So it's awesome. It never quite leaves the system.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But let's get back to you, Kim. So now you've started all of these different business streams. I think we want to start off by talking about the Airbnb, or sorry, not Airbnb, but the short-term rentals side of the business, because that's an area that's really interested us, and we haven't had anybody quite speak about it recently. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. Yeah, I've had people ask me for so many years, will you do this? Will you manage this? Obviously, I have an office in Orlando. We've got Disney and all that fun stuff. But it just wasn't something that we were interested in for such a long time. And over these last few years, we've had a lot of our investors ask, you know what, I want to buy an Airbnb. I want to do this. And I'm just like, "Ugh, okay, all right, I guess I'm going to jump into this." And I definitely jumped in. And within 5 months, I've got 38 units. And I know that's very quick. So it was kind of a sink or swim mentality. And it's been tough to learn it. But I find that I think my long term management and working over multiple cities and our efficiencies we've created really helped me, probably more so than maybe somebody else just starting out in it. And then we've also got a 12 unit that we're doing rehab for the same client. And then I actually have a small piece of ownership in that from some of my sweat equity, which is kind of cool. It's tough, but at the same time, as long as you have a really good cleaning crew, and I made one of my cleaners my co-host, and so she is actually essentially like an assistant manager underneath me, just like a multifamily. So it's kind of all helped me all the way around. And she helps me day to day to make sure that every unit is ready, it's ready to go, and just do all that. It's been interesting to learn a new program for operating and all these other different things that go with it.
So let's talk a little bit just about the opportunity, right? Someone who is out there and has heard of Airbnbs or other platforms for short-term rentals, and maybe they were considering long-term, I'd rather buy a house and just have one tenant in there. And in theory, let's compare and contrast, because you have great experience in both of those worlds for our audience. So what would you say are some of the pros and cons of short-term rentals versus buying a long-term rental property?
Well, I mean, obviously, I think the obvious is the longevity of the tenant or the guest in there. That took me a long time to go tenant guest, so I had that mentality.
Good call.
Yeah, that was probably one of the most difficult. Wait, no, guest, not tenant. I think what's probably great for somebody is doing your homework up front when you're looking at a piece of property, and we do this for our investors. Is this property? Is it just zoned for long term? Or is this something that is in a part of zoning where it could be either or? And we do give them both of those scenarios. Here's what this looks like. Here's what this looks like, because you never know if things are going to change. Municipalities and everything, they get a hair and they're like, oh, no, we don't want this anymore. So it's good to have that backup. I'm always trying to adjust it's called ADR, which is the average daily rental. And I'm always looking at that, especially because I've got like little apartment buildings, and it's like, how much am I garnering and what percentage of that are they occupied? So I can say, you know what, this is the number that I have to rent this for to make it 70%. And then I try to go after midterm rentals, which are like 30 days, 60 days. And that really helps with the turnover. So you're not having to clean, you're not having to turn it, you're not having to change the sheets, you're not, all the essentials, all these different things. So these are usually, like nurses or people at a school. You can work with corporations for relocations. I mean, there's just all these other different avenues that can kind of help. So you're kind of in that middle piece rather than all long-term and all short-term. So we call it furnished flex leasing. So we're trying to get a little bit away from the Airbnb. Although I will say, somebody starting out, that's probably the best way to go because they really help with the accounting piece of it and they pay a portion of the taxes. So you've got these different platforms that you can be on, and that's probably the most user-friendly and easiest way to start out.
So right now you don't use any of the platforms. You're just doing direct dealings with the renters.
No, I use all the platforms.
Okay.
I use Airbnb, I use Verbo, I use Furnish Finder, and then we also have direct booking on our website.
Okay. Now you were saying that mid-range flex renters are your sweet spot. How do you go about finding those or advertising directly to those to make sure you lock those particular type of guests into your properties?
That's what I was mentioning about, trying to find where are your nursing schools so you can advertise there, going after different corporations in the area. it takes a lot of that face to face sometimes to really make these things happen. Relocation companies, the schools in the area. It could be a community college, could be, a UCF or, something like that. I mean, there's so many, you have to figure out what is the niche in your area that could fit your property. And then you also maybe want to change your dynamics of how you decorate, as opposed to who you think is going to be there. You don't want to have all these fun, crazy things and you've got hipsters if you've got an older, senior community there. So you really have to take that into account as well.
Now, how hard is it to get into a room with, let's say, one of these corporations if you're trying to do corporate housing? How easy is it to get in contact with them and kind of, pitch your, your properties to the management?
It's not a one and done. I always tell my agents, don't be secret agents. Don't do it one time. And, you think that you're just going to be there, get in there and leave. I mean, you've got to be persistent on it without a doubt, because it's not going to happen the first time you go in there. But, maybe take them something to eat, bring some flyers the next time, put it on a rotation schedule so they know you're there so they don't forget you. Because there's probably a lot of other people doing the same thing. You've got a lot of people during the pandemic that, were having a hard time renting their properties on the long term. So a lot of them started to pivot over to short term, and they flooded the market in some of these places. So you need to be unique and persistent on getting it out there on whatever that means, Airbnb, the Verbo, your own website, marketing to wherever. I mean, you need to get it out there.
So is there normally...
That's really interesting.
So go ahead, Alex.
Because it seems like for you as a property manager, for other owners, you have, I couldn't tell. So the 38 units, those are yours personally or yours as a property manager?
The 38 I am managing. Somebody else owns those. Okay, the 12 unit, I am a piece of the ownership on that. Yes.
So that's exciting. So that means exactly that's the point I was trying to make, is that you as a property manager are adding even more value, and it's more worth it for you to go and build these relationships and market to these corporations
obviously
than it is
I've
for
got
an individual owner.
Yeah.
Well, an individual owner might own one or two houses, and it's probably not a great return on investment to go and build a whole relationship with a corporation for one or two vacancies. Whereas for you can pass that value along.
Because it wouldn't be enough to pay them. Obviously, you've got to build, quantity over time. It's just very interesting how now I have 50, but they're in 3 little buildings, and so it's very interesting. I'm like, how did I get this many and this fast? But they're not the big houses where one's over here, one's spread out over there. And this is going to be, I think, much easier for me to help other people, because now I kind of got it down and I can do it in I think more quickly than maybe somebody else could. But definitely building up, working on Orlando next. Like, let me get this situated and perfected, and then I can move on.
So I had a follow-up question on the corporate side, the corporate renters. So is there a particular position that to target to kind of like pitch your deal to? Is there like an HR manager, or how do you know who the person to talk to is?
It typically is the HR manager. That's usually who you want to get in with, because they're the ones that meet those people first. And they usually need a place to live. They need that, and sometimes people aren't ready to go rent for a year or, buy something. And this is that kind of great intro into the area. And we usually are more of we're called a host. We're introducing them to the area. I'm telling them where this is, where that is, how you get around, where's the grocery store. I'm always introducing that first, rather than normally just a long-term property manager doesn't really do that much as we would, because you're more in hospitality. That's really probably the biggest fine line between the two. It's hospitality over on the furnished flex leasing as opposed to the long-term.
Very interesting. Can you give us some guidelines? Because you mentioned that finding a good cleaner is just one of the keys to success in this business. Can you tell us, you must have probably some horror stories or kind of some guidelines on what to look for in a good cleaner and how to know how to manage that relationship?
I had mine clean my house first. I wanted to see how they cleaned.
Smart.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm very
Very
particular.
smart.
I'm very detail oriented, and you have to do that in this business. And I have two sets of cleaners, and the one that I made my co-host, her team is phenomenal. She has trained them the correct way, and I saw that in her. I also am on about 4 different superhost sites, and there's also an Airbnb cleaning site. So you just have to get in there and start to network and find. There are also ones for Airbnb Tampa, Airbnb Houston, or wherever you are. Start getting in there and knowing these people, and they really do help each other. It's a great community of hosts out there, and really that's the great place to start to find people.
Yeah, I
I
think
That's really
also
exciting.
used Nextdoor. I don't know if you have those in your community, but that is a great way to find people as well for anything really.
yeah, I
that
heard
you
No.
need.
recently about one. I heard recently about one called Home Aglow or something like Home Glow, something like that.
Yeah, I don't know that one.
That also is
Yeah.
growing in popularity. Yeah.
Now, are these
I bet,
Airbnb
yeah.
networks, are they like Facebook groups, or are they different, like just, specific meetups? Like, that's really interesting. I'm a big believer in these networks.
Yes. These that I'm on are Facebook. There's
Okay.
like a gazillion of them. You just have to look for one you think that fits your interest of what you need or want out of it. And I started on those before I even became a superhost. I wanted to know, what is this all about? What are these crazy things I'm going to run into? What are the great things? What are the not? I mean, mostly you'll hear all the negative things that happen. So I'm like, all right, fill me up. I want to know what's going to happen. What am I going to have to put up with? What am I going to have to deal with? And I think that probably prepared me more than anything, even my long term.
Very interesting. So I guess, yeah, that brings up for me, like, one of the big fears, I guess, that I would have about this is someone coming in and just trashing the place, right? Throwing a big party and having some crazy, like, I don't know. Yeah, just a big party, and then you end up with like your furniture, and all the damage is probably much more than what could happen in, well, I guess in long-term rental, you can have a ton of damage too.
You can,
But
yeah, you can in both. What I've found really interesting, and I have heard that over and over about the parties, and they have some beyond your front door camera that you need. Can't put one inside, but there are items that you can put in the house. They're noise meters, which I think are phenomenal for houses. If you've got a 3-4 bedroom house, I definitely advise you to do that, because it will alert you. And also your Ring camera at the front door, it will tell you, okay, here's 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh God, there's like 10 people in here. I thought we only had 2 guests. So that I think is extremely helpful. What I found on my side, because I have the smaller communities, I have studios and 1 bedrooms. You really can't fit a lot of people in those. So maybe some people will try, but I really have not found that I've had big parties. Yeah, some people late at night. I talked to him like I talked to somebody today about it. I think theirs was more walking, and she heard him downstairs. I'm like, okay. So, I mean, you'll hear all kinds of things, but I found in those smaller units like that, you don't have those kinds of issues with parties. Yes, somebody can trash it or is dirty. You just have to be prepared for that. It's going to happen. So don't think that it won't. And really, that's a part of the business. Obviously, if they damage something, you want to turn in something to Airbnb on that. It's called Air Cover. And they have like $1 million, and so does Verbo, on helping you recover something. I think I've only had 2 in the last couple of months. One was a pet, which I do accept pets. We are pet lovers. I give dog bones and toys when they check in, and those people love me. So that's my job, is to really focus on service and doing things that your normal hotel would probably not do. So that's really what I'm focusing on. But yeah, Alex, I don't have a lot of those problems, I think, because of how my setup is. Thank goodness.
Yeah,
Yeah, great.
I've had a colleague of mine, a friend of mine. They own some beachfront properties, and they just had their first run-in with the party issue last
Yeah.
summer, where it was supposed to be, I think, only like a small group of like 3 or 4 people, but it ended up being a biker gang who just had a giant party. The house was smelling of weed, and it was just trash, and it was just.
Wow.
I mean, it was the damage was not too bad. It was just superficial, but still, it was just ridiculous.
Yes, I mean, it stinks, but they're
Yeah,
going to do those at hotels. They're going to, I mean,
yeah,
it is part of this hospitality industry, unfortunately. And you just got to kind of let it roll off your back. I've been doing this for 30 years. I'm like, okay, yes, move on, let's take care of it, and
yeah.
go.
I
And
mean, that was their.
that's an important part of it,
Yeah, I
is
mean, that
to
was
be
their
able to.
first. I was saying that was their first run-in with any type of problem. So it's
Yes.
their track record for the most part has been good.
Yeah, because I hear a lot of these horror stories on these Facebook groups, and these people take it very personally.
Mhm.
And you can't, it's a business. That is what we're running. You're running a business, and you cannot let that affect you. Okay, you deal with it. What do? You solve the problem. Okay, you fix it, and you move on to the next thing. And that's a big piece of this that people have to understand.
That's great. I recently went to one of those real estate investing conferences, and I think I was telling Aziz about it, how one of the things that was exciting but scary was, I think 3 or 4 different people went up on stage and talked about how they lost everything at one point in their lives. And then they just had to build back up, and okay, now I'm back up and better than ever. And it seems to be this common theme, which I don't think I like that, right? But I guess it's worth talking about is, hey, like something about doing business is being ready to take those punches and get back up. And so even if that's a relatively small punch compared to some of these people who lost everything and
Yeah.
had to the one guy was talking about his 2008, he had all these investments and all these assets that he had built up, and then 2008 crisis, and he just lost everything, bounced back from that, and now he's back and better than ever. And so that there is a certain amount of just resilience and
Yeah.
and grit that's needed if we're going to be in this, whether as an investor or as an entrepreneur. We have to be ready to kind of take those punches. So that's a good attitude to have. Thanks for
Yeah,
sharing that.
we had the same, I won't say the same thing. We didn't lose everything, but it was a really big punch to the gut was in '08. I would say we probably had, I'm going to say we had like 500 properties at the time. And all of a sudden at night, we're getting these phone calls. This is the tenant. We've got the process server here at our house serving us papers. The house is getting foreclosed on. And I'm like, what? Like before that, we almost never had that happen. We just never heard of it in the single family. And another night, get screaming at us, we're the middleman. They're gonna scream at us, and happening over and over. And we lost 100 properties in 1 year. It was
Oh,
Oh my
crazy,
goodness.
yeah.
but we kept everybody intact. Was it tough? Absolutely, to lose that, and we didn't let go any of our team or anything, but it was tough. And here rolls around 2009, 2010, we get a call from a hedge fund. Hey, we're going to buy 400 houses, and we're like, okay, yeah. And we didn't believe them. I'm like, okay. And so my husband and I met with them several times, and here they came with their backpack and a laptop, and we helped them buy 400 houses over the next couple of years. And that was the craziest, unbelievable time of our lives. And I will say that it made us probably what we are today, because it made us ramp up our efficiencies and how we run things. And they're turning over 20 houses a week. We got to rehab them. We've got to lease them. We got to manage. I mean, it was just like we turned into a machine. What is that, like the myth, the pickle, mustard, ketchup, pickle, we had to make it that way, even though every house is completely different. This isn't multifamily. So that made us 10 times better. And then we took on hedge funds after that. We're working with one right now. Are they crazy to deal with? 100%. And the accounting piece of it is insane. And I feel like every month they scrap a bunch together, and then they go get more money for this set. Okay, we're going to create a different account for this one. Let's take these 20 houses, and you're like, I think our CPA, he has like 40 bank accounts to reconcile every month.
Wow.
Yeah. He's like, really? Could they do this at the first of a month? That's the 15th. And you're like, really? We're going to do, you're just like, it's so crazy, but it's one of those, we've been there, done that now. But when you're in it, and first, your eyes are like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? But that to us was probably two of the craziest times in our life. And after that first hedge fund left, it was American Homes for Rent we worked with for 4 years. They internalized their management. And that was another, punch to the gut. But I will say this, we were smart. We had a fee that they had to pay us when they left that we put in our first agreement. So if they had internalized, they will pay us X amount of money. So that was nice to get that lump sum. But it was tough because we did have to lay people off. And those are probably the two toughest times in our business.
Now, you said that they internalize. For our audience, can you please define what that means?
Sure. A lot of times you'll see the hedge funds, especially, and sometimes we ask people, we do it in a nice way. If they're not a good owner to take care of their property, we go, you know what, you should self-manage. So it basically is when the company or person will take their properties back and they'll do it themselves. That's probably the most simplistic way to do that. It's like, okay, we're going to set this all up and do it ourselves. So then you no longer manage the property. And so when you have 400 taken from you at one time, you're like, ouch, it's a tough one.
Oh yeah, I can imagine. Kim, so we've talked quite a bit about short-term rentals, which is still a really exciting place to be these days. I know for me, at least, I started to notice it. I had actually done short-term rentals in my own house, right? Like a specific bedroom in my house. I did that right after I bought in like 2012, 13. But I really started to see it as like a major investment cash flow opportunity as a response to COVID. And that's when I see this huge spike of people really making serious money and starting to really turn it into a business where they're either buying properties or even renting properties as a long-term tenant and then subleasing them to as short-term rentals and kind of
Which
still
we don't
making
let
a killing.
Our tenants do.
Oh, you don't let that? Okay.
No.
Yeah, exactly.
Subleasing.
But,
yeah. No. But there is something called arbitrage, which a lot of people do, which is what you are probably alluding to, where I've been contacted before and I said, no, absolutely not, because we will do that, but we will set that up. But yeah, I mean, you'll have people contact you and say, hey, I'd like to rent this for, 6 months, a year, and then I'll pay you X amount of dollars. And then they have to let you know that is their intent, is to furnish that and sublease it out on Airbnb or Vrbo, whichever they're looking at. But there are a lot of people that make quite a bit of money at that. And it's a definitely an inexpensive way for somebody to get started in this arena of the short term.
Very interesting. So now we've talked a bit about that. Let's talk a little bit, if you're ready, Aziz, we can transition to some of the other businesses.
No, I had one quick question about the short-term rentals. So it's all the hype now. You hear about it all the time. If you go on social media, every other person's talking about short-term rentals, arbitrage, and all this other stuff. In terms of the dollars, how is it as lucrative as long-term rentals or less lucrative? I mean, how do the numbers add up? Is it better to go with the long-term rentals, or is it really worth it to do the Airbnb, Vrbo short-term rental route?
It comes down to doing your due diligence and your homework on the front end. You really need to look. There's a couple of different sites that people can look on. There's AirDNA, there's Rabbu, RABBU, and there's Mashvisor. Those are the 3 sites that we will typically look at. And you can hone in on your zip code, your area, beds and baths, and all those different things. It will really give you a really good indication of what's the season there, what's off season, and what is the average daily occupancy there, and gives him a good idea to go, okay, I can rent this for about 3,000 a month is what I'll garner in gross rents. And then you go over and then you look at the long-term side and see what your rents are there, and do a contrast and comparison. Because on the short-term side, you do have to furnish it. You're going to include all your utilities and daily essentials. And could that mean that you're going to stock it like you're living there? Or do you give minimum, you give some salt and pepper and some paper towels and toilet paper and a couple other things, and then they're on their own. So it depends on that. But really looking at those. But I will tell you, because of the homework we do for the investors, most time, if you're in an area that's zoned, you will make double the money that you will on a long term.
Wow. Okay.
That's pretty significant.
Yeah.
And of course, there's some active role there, but maybe now,
Yes.
Are you saying double, including the service for, the valuable service that you're providing too?
No.
No.
I mean, so we
Okay.
definitely have to make some money for dealing with the crazy,
Sure.
but I would say you're probably about 20% higher than you are on the long term if you hire a property manager and let them do it for you if you're, absentee or you don't want to bother with it. So
Sure.
there's some
Okay.
advantages to it. And also, too, you could come and stay yourself. So it's definitely a vacation place as well. But I've got some of my investors, actually, they're coming to town the middle of February. They've bought 2 properties from me, and we did a house with an ADU, which means that's an accessory dwelling unit in the back. So they have 2 units that are legal and that can be rented, and they're in areas where they can do short term. So they have one has a long-term tenant and a short-term tenant, and it's vice versa in the other one. But they have just made so much money on those, and they do it themselves, which is great. And I help them. I figure there's enough business for everybody. I don't have to have every account, and they're coming to town to buy another one. So it's exciting. There's many different things, as long as you buy it at the right dollar amount, of course, and fix it up too. Don't not do the repairs, because that doesn't make for a good rental, whether it's long or short. And just making sure that really lessens those calls at 10 o'clock at night that this doesn't work. And especially if you're trying to do it, far away. But it can be done.
Oh, excellent. Well, let's see. Should we talk a little bit about your co-working space? Would you like to? Let's start there. Let's tell us,
Sure.
because that's your newest thing. That's pretty different. I don't think we've talked about co-working
Actually,
spaces on the
before
show
we
yet.
jump into that, can
Okay.
we, just because this ties with the short-term rentals, can we talk about the property management side of things? Because that's another one of your business ventures. How do you vet and find a good property manager?
Oh,
No,
we
this
can
is
shift
more for
back
the
into-
long-term rentals.
There are a whole host of questions you could ask. Obviously their experience, how many properties do they manage, and are they a licensed realtor? And it depends. And I say depends because some states don't require the property manager to be a licensed realtor, but most do. There are very few that don't. So more than not. And I say that because it's very important, because I hear horror stories about that. They hire somebody who's not responsible to their real estate commission. They're held to a different standard. They have to reconcile their books every 30 days. They have to account to them. If they don't, they can go in front of the commission and lose their license. And so very important for that question. Also, how do they market the property? And what are the expenses to the owner? Because there's a lot of times there's a leasing fee, a renewal fee, sometimes a maintenance markup. And does that person own that maintenance company? And what is their markup? Advertising, is that your cost or theirs? Where do they hold the escrow monies? How is maintenance handled? Do they take care of it 24 hours a day? What are they able to spend each repair before they have to call you? So you want to discuss all those little intricacies before you hire somebody. And good to ask too if they have somebody they could talk to that's one of the clients. I don't think it's probably the most important thing because they'll probably give you the best person you can talk to. So, but yeah, just finding every little thing. Can they pay your mortgage for you? Can they pay your taxes? Can they pay your HOA dues? Do they collect the rent from the tenant? How do they do that? How do they pay you each month? I mean, there's just a gazillion things you can ask.
Now, is there any services that kind of allow you to kind of, they've been like already pre-vetted, top class property managers database that you can just kind of pick from? Does such a thing exist? Or
Not that I know of. I'm a past president for the National Association of Residential Property Managers called NARPM. And if you want somebody that's really good and they're well trained, a lot of the people belong to that. And you can look them up online by state and by city. And a lot of times, if they have those little ABC 1, 2, 3 behind their name, they're probably more seasoned than not. So that's a great place to look to start with.
Okay. And do they provide like certifications and things like that you can look
Yes,
for?
they do. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. There's MPM, which is a master property manager, very experienced. There's a RMP, which is a residential management professional. And there is probably the most coveted is the CRMC, and that's a certified residential management company. And they've had to meet a lot of stringent things in order to become one of those. And we are one of them. There's only 50, I believe 50 or 51 in the whole United States.
Oh, wow. So
Yeah.
That's very prestigious then.
Yes. Very hard to get. Got to
Yeah, I
work
can
a
imagine.
lot for that one. But
And you're
yeah.
one of the 50.
Yeah, I am one of the 50. Absolutely.
Okay.
Amazing. Thank you for that. That's really helpful. I didn't know that existed. And we've gone through some of that where, you're just looking for, and you need to really trust your property manager. And so building
Oh
those
my
relationships.
goodness, yes.
is
Absolutely.
key.
I mean, they should be I'm a lack of a better term, they need to be your partner. I tell people we're going to be married to each other. We're like husband and wife. We are married to each other because I work for them 365 days a year, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. And we have to know and trust each other. And that works both ways. I mean, because there are some people that we choose not to work with. And I'm sure vice versa. There may be some people that don't want to choose us either. Maybe we feel like we're too expensive or they want to do more of their own thing. And there's different programs too. Some people will do what we call a lease only, which is where we market the property, we show it, we do the lease for them, we do the move-in inspection, do all of those things. And then after they move in, we hand the keys back over to the owner and they manage and collect the rent each month. And some people like that, some we do the full amount. We do all of that and we manage it 24 hours a day for them. So you've got a couple different ways you can do it.
Very interesting. Okay. Okay. So in addition to managing and short-term and long-term, you are an investor yourself. You buy and sell. I think the context we met in was in multifamily,
Yes.
right? I was starting to do some shopping in Central Florida, and we met in bigger pockets.
Yes.
And, but then you do it yourself. So tell us a little bit about your latest acquisition.
My latest acquisition is a 4,600 square foot office building in St. Petersburg. And not only will we have our office there, but we also will have co-working. And that entails people that maybe want to have a hot desk, which means they just they can come and sit anywhere they want monthly. We have dedicated desk where that is their desk. They get to sit there, nobody else. And then we also have 3 dedicated private offices that they can rent. We also have drop-ins where you can, like I've got a couple of our investors coming in and out, and they're like, "Yeah, Kim," I said, "Yeah, I'm not going to charge them. I'm just come on over and work for the day." And we've got a 2-story building. We have 3 conference rooms. We have a podcast room. We have 2 kitchens, 3 bathrooms. We're ordering a phone booth that's a soundproof booth, and we have an outside area with tables and umbrellas, and so it's just a cool spot. And we have free parking, which is a big thing if you're in downtown. So we're a little outside of downtown. So I pay like $85 for each one of my employees for downtown. So it's getting very expensive monthly. So we're like, okay, time to buy a building. But we think the co-working really fits in well with the Florida Nest. And I feel like we'll probably have a lot of people that are coming to check in that probably need somewhere like that. So I'm going to focus in on that as well and helping them if they need a place to work. So I just think it's a cool idea at this time and place right now. And really office has shifted a lot over the last 2 years.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I think I know Aziz, and for me too, like I might take you up on that. I might stay in one of your Airbnbs and then go to your office and just hang out for a few weeks.
I'd love that.
Get some fun in the sun.
I know I'll get no work done because we'll just talk real estate.
That might be cool.
My
and I know
favorite
Aziz is
subject.
big on remote work. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love
So
it.
that might be a fun little getaway for everybody.
Yeah.
I'm all about
You're
remote work.
definitely welcome. I'll give you a good deal.
Nice. All right. Well, I guess, this has been very fun, very enlightening. We've been trying to find people to talk about short-term rentals for a long time, and we're so happy to have you be our first, especially because you have so much experience in long-term rentals. It's very refreshing that you can kind of help us with this comparison.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
And, do you have any other takeaways or last words that you'd like to share with our audience about maybe how they can find you, or just kind of words of wisdom you'd like to share with them?
Don't be afraid to invest. I mean, there's so many different ways to invest. We've got people that invest in, we do some syndications sometimes. That's a way to kind of put your toe in, but maybe you just want to be a limited partner, meaning you invest, but you don't have to do anything. So that's kind of cool. You can partner up with your friends. You can do the rental arbitrage. I mean, there's just so many different ways you can do that. And now that I see the market beginning that shift between, more of a buyer's market, I think there's going to definitely be some interesting deals that can be put together on that. So definitely, search out your team wherever it is that you want to be, and go for it. I mean, I think we all really want to work towards having money for retirement, and not having to work so much or trying not to, and that passive income. So, I mean, just have a goal in mind and work towards it, and it will happen. I didn't start young. I didn't invest in my first property till I was in my 40s. And now we have, 3 commercial buildings, a multifamily, and some single families. So I have a little bit of everything, and now investing in the 12 unit for the short term, midterm. So I love it, and it's never too late to start. And
I love that. That's a really powerful message.
Yeah, definitely. Anybody can look me up. I don't know if you'll share my contact information.
Yes,
yeah,
Alex
please.
Aziz,
Feel free.
Yeah,
give it to people right now.
You can email me at Kim@Hampton and Hampton, A&D, Kim@HamptonandHampton.com. Phone number is 407-448-6679.
Awesome.
Excellent. Thank you. I really love your message. It's really common for, especially on social media and stuff. And we've had a few of these guests on the show who are very young and accomplish really great things at 22, 18 years old. And that's awesome. Good for them.
Yeah, they make me reevaluate my life.
Yeah, exactly. But I love the message that it's never too late. Yeah. But it's a really important thing too for everyone else. Is just that, hey, just because you didn't start when you were 19, it's never too late, and it's better to start now than it is to wait another 20 years or another 30 years.
Yes, go ahead and start. Do it. I mean, like I said, I didn't start till I was in my 40s, and I kick myself now because I too, I work with people, I had talked to one yesterday. She's 25, but it's wants a multifamily. And I'm like, what did I do wrong? So, but I know that we all kick ourselves for that. But honestly, it's never too late to start. Do it. And it's so fun. Yeah, you're going to have some hard times and you're going to get kicked a few times, but that's probably the fun of it. If we didn't have that, I mean, how would we learn if it was just all so easy? But yeah, oh my gosh, get out there and do it. I love it. I'm in it daily, and it's the best thing I ever did. I love it day to day.
Awesome.
How beautiful. Kim, thank you so much for being on the show. It's been a pleasure to just get the chance to talk to you again, really.
Yeah, it
Thank
was really
you guys
wonderful.
both. I appreciate it.